Today's episode of the Our Hen House podcast is being sponsored by our partner, A Well-Fed World. A Well-Fed World is a hunger relief and animal protection organization chipping away at two of the world's most immense, unnecessary, and unconscionable forms of suffering. The suffering of people hungry from lack of food, and the suffering of animals used and abused for food. Mending our unjust food system is a critical part of solving the world's most destructive and persistent problems. Fortunately, the plant-based foods that promote health and well-being are the same foods that conserve resources to better feed the world, while reducing greenhouse gas emissions and protecting the environment. A well-fed world provides the means for change by empowering individuals, social justice organizations, and political decision-makers to embrace the benefits of plant-based foods and farming. Learn more at awfw.org.
Our hen house is a squawking house. Our hen house is their hen house. Our hen house, ooh, it's a funky fresh house. Our hen house is your hen house.
Welcome to Our Hen House. This is Mariann Sullivan. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's show. I am happily going to be talking about fish with my guest, Jennifer Jacquet. And doesn't it seem like recently everyone's talking about fish just so much more than anyone ever has before? And it's a good thing because people have really, really ignored fish and what's going on with them. And all of a sudden there's a real high level of interest in what's going on in all those little fish brains. And of course, you know, what's happening to them is pretty horrifying. But we're going to be talking to Jennifer Jacquet, who has great stories to tell. And all right, there's a lot of bad news, but you're really going to want to hear what she has to say. She is a professor at NYU in the Department of Environmental Studies and is also with the NYU Animal Studies program. And she kind of knows it all about what's going on with fish. Then Jasmine will be talking to the always wonderful Simone Reyes. She's been on the podcast before. I'm sure you're familiar with her. She's just she's like an amazing activist, and she is with Social Compassion in Legislation. And we'll be discussing specific legislation that they're trying to get passed to try to address the epidemic of dogs being shot during police encounters. And this really is an epidemic. It's a horrifying situation and is something that can be addressed. And she's going to be talking about ways in which perhaps the legislature can help address it. And all right, I'm going to talk about our hen house today rather than going on and on about some topic. I will be brief, but I know we ask regularly for support. I'm sure it gets tiring, and I know I'm talking to the people who are already providing it. I know you're out there, and the fact is that we really have to grow. We really need, I'm not really talking about money right now. I'm talking about listeners. It's becoming kind of a problem, and we're not growing in the way we need to if we're going to survive and if we're really going to change the world for animals. We have to get the word out there. And I like to think that Our Hen House is a great way to get the word out there. And if you share that view, I'm really hoping you're going to help us. As I mentioned, I'm not asking for money. Well, I'm not right now. I don't ask for a lot, but we need to grow our listenership. And there's just an enormous number of podcasts recently and other media competing for attention. I don't think there's any other podcast that occupies the particular space of Our Hen House, which is kind of amazing. So we're there, and it's not like somebody's doing it better because we do have a specific niche. And we just need to reach more people. And so I'm asking you to please share us with your friends. And by share, I'm talking about a number of different ways. For one thing, obviously, I'm talking about social media. As you know, we put up every podcast on Facebook. And then we've also been creating these memes to go with each of our podcasts to get more attention. And, it takes a fair amount of effort to do that. And we have been getting some attention, but we actually have to pay Facebook to share them, and we don't have that much to share, to spare that we can pay. But that's what you have to do these days to get attention on Facebook, to reach new people, to reach, more than just the people who are already listening. And we're doing it because we're trying to get new listeners. So if you see the podcast on Facebook or on Twitter or one of the memes we've made, please don't just like it. No, please do like it, but share it. Share it with your followers. It's so important to us. We really do need you. And not just on social media either. You know, when I mean share in a lot of different ways. If there are people in your life who you think might like the podcast, please let them know about it. Please ask them to try it. You know, all they have to do is try it. If they don't like it, they won't listen to it. It's not that big a burden. But if you could please do that, it would help us out so much. And you know, I'm doing this because I honestly think that this podcast can help change the world for animals. I hope I'm right. If you're listening, I assume you think that there's at least some hope of that. And the biggest thing keeping animals from getting out from under the unbelievable oppression that is visited upon them is that nobody sees them. They don't hear about them. They aren't focusing on them. And we can change that. I know that we don't talk specifically about all the horrible things that are happening to animals because I don't think that's the best way to get people to listen to you. It's too hard. But we are talking to the people who are fighting for animals and who are inspiring others. And that's what we do. And I really think it's a way to change people's hearts and minds by being inspired by all of these amazing people who are working so hard. And I'm not saying we're so great, you know, the people we have on are so great. They're doing such amazing things, and we love to share their voices, and we have so much to share because they have so much to share. And please just help us share it. So just help us keep animals on the agenda in any way that we can. All right. That's enough of that. You know, it's always so awkward doing these kinds of things, but it really has to be said. Anyway, all right, I'm going to stop. All right, let's get to the people who are so great, who I'm talking about, and I'll shut up about that. And my guest today is, as I mentioned, is Jennifer Jacquet, and she's an assistant professor in the Department of Environmental Studies at NYU, and she's part of the Animal Studies Initiative, and she's also a former Sea Shepherd volunteer. She worked with their anti-shark finning campaign in the Galapagos Islands in 2001. She'll be telling us a bit about that. I guess that was one of the things that got her started being particularly interested in fish. She actually works on a number of large-scale environmental and animal-related problems, but she does have this particular expertise with fish, and she's also the author of this book that has a very, very intriguing title, Is Shame Necessary? New Uses for an Old Tool. You know, shame, it seems like a really good idea for a hell of a lot of people. A lot of people should be ashamed. Not you, of course, but a lot of people out there. I won't mention names. And but Jennifer is not one of them, and she'll be joining me right after this.
This podcast episode is brought to you in part through the generosity of Catskill Animal Sanctuary. Need to renew your spirit by spending quality time with happy horses and cows and pigs and sheep and goats and chickens and ducks? I do. If you do, you're in luck because today, April 1st, Catskill Animal Sanctuary opens for weekend tours. Meet rescued animals and hear their stories at this 110-acre refuge in the picturesque Hudson Valley, just 2 hours north of New York City. Tours start at 11 a.m. and run every 45 minutes, and you'll have plenty of time for questions and saying hi to the animals. Visit casanctuary.org/visit for info on hours, pricing, and directions. That's casanctuary.org/visit. Gosh, I love Catskill Animal Sanctuary. If you go, I am totally envious of you, but happy for you too. Go visit. Love Catskill Animal Sanctuary.
Welcome to our hen house, Jennifer.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. I've heard so much about your work, and it's amazing. And you've done so many different things, and you're working on so many different things. But it might seem a weird place to start, but I'd love to start by having you tell us a little bit about your time with Sea Shepherd.
Yeah, so that was back in the day when it was easier to join Sea Shepherd than it is now. And it was, I think, late 2000, and I was looking for something to do with the 3 months off I was going to take from being an undergrad. And luckily, I mean, I don't know how. I don't remember how you even got email addresses back then. But I wrote to...
I don't remember that there were email addresses back then.
It was still pretty new. I wrote to Paul Watson and had mentioned, that I was going to be in Eugene at the Environmental Law Conference where I knew he was speaking. And I'd already seen him speak when I was in high school. And luckily, I mean, he just wrote me back and said, well, introduce yourself because, you're looking to volunteer and perhaps we have something available. And that's what happened. I talked to him then at that environmental law conference, and I managed to become a Sea Shepherd volunteer just for 3 months, but in their Galapagos campaign to stop shark finning. Which was really great because it's a rare campaign where they were also working with the Galapagos National Park and with the government. So they gave the boat and then a couple of volunteers, and then everyone else on board was Ecuadorian. And it was the day I got there. I wasn't there for the catch, but they had caught a foreign longliner with 1,044 shark fins on board its boat. So. I was there, and I was like all young volunteers, completely useless. And I learned more. Well, pretty much completely. Honest, I didn't speak Spanish. I learned so much from being part of it, and it was such a valuable experience. And it was just so great to be part of Sea Shepherd, which I've always admired their work. So I proudly mention it every chance I get.
Yeah, well, that is a salute to hiring interns in general, because you may not have known anything then, but you have gone on to do a lot about fish. And because of our crack research team here at our hen house, I happen to know that you're originally from Ohio, which made me wonder, why fish? Was it seeing Paul Watson speak when you were in high school? Where did this passion for fish in the oceans come from?
Yeah, I mean, I was an early subscriber to Ranger Rick, I loved the oceans and the animals in them. And I had originally wanted to be a marine biologist, but my parents thought that would be a really unwise move financially. And so I sort of had this lingering passion. Again, like I'd seen Paul Watson speak at the university in my town in Ohio. And I loved always the Greenpeace campaigns around whales. I had been moved at a very early age. I received in the mail from the Earth Island Institute a mailing about the dolphin safe tuna issue, the dolphin slaughter that was going on during tuna fishing. And that was when I was 9 years old. I mean, it really created an impression in me. So I did have an interest in the oceans and everything living in them. And I came to really see, fish and fisheries as a kind of, to me, as I grew older, it was sort of weird that we cared about the dolphins, but not the tuna.
Yeah, I know.
And so that, became an interest that I would pursue then for my PhD.
Yeah, that's always so interesting an issue for us and for people listening to this podcast, like, well, what about the tuna? But not for so many other people, which, a lot of the questions I have to answer you are big questions, and I know you can't answer them completely, but maybe because you do know so much about fish and what's going on with them, you can give us an overview of some of the issues. And what I'd like to start with is like who the fish are. What is the current science on the sentience of, I know there's a lot of different animals when you're talking about the ocean, but can you just give us an idea of who's living down there?
Well, we know we have the marine mammals who are obviously special and who got sort of preferential treatment back in the 70s with the whole communication and singing, and obviously they feed their young and have paternal care and all that. And now we've been working our way, kind of like on land. I feel like we started with chimps and we've worked our way. I feel like that in the ocean we started with whales, and now we've worked our way sort of down the food web or across the food web or something. And so, I think there's still a lot that we don't know about fish generally, but you have like tuna are warm-blooded, right? They swim at enormously fast speeds. They migrate vast distances. They're very special animals. So to me, the idea that they're sort of just seen as a commodity is kind of crazy. And we know that fish, it's now well established that they feel pain, for instance. But that was something that a lot of people conveniently doubted, I think, for a long time. The invertebrates, we get into a lot of messier, I think, areas of research. And something that I'm really interested in is how among the invertebrates, octopus really stand out as this kind of amazingly special class of organisms and creatures, cephalopods generally. But even down to, things like jellyfish, where we're not probably going to grant them the same moral status, but they have a lot of things about them that are wondrous nonetheless. So I think, and people do get kind of obsessed with ocean programs and what is living down there and how uniquely adapted, right, to the situation they are. But we really have a hard time imagining what it's like to live permanently in water. So I look forward actually to the stuff that's continuing to happen in this space about, curiosity in fish, long-term memory in fish. I'm really interested in some cooperative arrangements that certain species of fish have with other fish. And it's a lot more complicated, than I think first glance would suggest.
Yeah, it really, it's fascinating to think about, and it's fascinating to think about how little we know. But apparently there's a lot going on down there and a lot of creatures who are aware of it. But people still, as you said, the science has been debunked that fish don't feel pain. And I hope that's been fully debunked. It seems like every once in a while some other thing comes up that people are making that claim. But people in general, aside from the science, kind of don't see fish as animals or as individuals. Is it because of that science, or is it why is it that people just see them as, even the word fish, you don't know whether you're talking about one fish or a billion fish. It's,
and the word seafood, it's even worse.
Yeah, the word seafood is unbelievable. And even the most benign children's program about the family, where they would never show anything about killing another animal, they're happily killing fish over and over as if it's the cutest thing in the world. What's going on there? It's really
funny. A friend of mine and I kind of got into a debate about this because she recommended George Saunders' Grappers of Fripp, which is a children's book. And I love George Saunders, so I've read it. And the end message is about fishing, and I was like, "What?"
Why?
No. and it carries this spirit that you're talking about, where you almost get the sense like it wouldn't have happened for any other category of animal. But
chances are the cute little ending wouldn't have been about slaughtering the pig.
No, I think definitely not. Again, this is, I think, something that we will see over the course of our lifetimes change. And I'm really excited to be part of that because it's their time, basically. And we're learning so much. And as much as science is doing to sort of reveal those curiosities, it has also, traditionally been implicated in them as well. So a lot of traditional fisheries scientists and fisheries biologists were actually an arm of industry, much the way, people studying cattle are. And they sort of perpetuated the notion of these animals as commodities rather than as actual individuals. And to this day, there's still a struggle within the field and also in marine ecology generally between not just a sort of single species model versus an ecosystem-based model, which has been the traditional tension, but even just seeing them not as a species group, but as individual animals. So there's far less discussion about welfare in capture fisheries, certainly far less about welfare in aquaculture and farm fish. So I'm excited to be part of, bringing that more and more to the public's attention. And I think that actually the public is much more willing to go there in some ways than the science is.
Do you think that movies like Finding Nemo and Finding Dory have had an effect? Or those, I never know how those things.
The pet trade.
So what? Yeah, exactly. I never know how those things go. I'm not sure they really affect the way people look at real animals. They just affect the way they look at cartoon animals.
Well, I mean, they did, the demand for clownfish in aquarium trade did increase. So that was not a great effect for the real animal. But I remember reading in Harper's, they had a bunch of Roto-Rooter transcripts about people trying to get their fish that they'd flushed down the toilet back. So it may have affected that behavior. But I have the sense, I have a niece and nephew who are pretty into Finding Nemo and Finding Dory, that it gave them a greater familiarity with the animals. They do know what a clownfish is, which I don't think they would know otherwise. So, I don't know how much the Lion King really benefited lions. Yeah. But I have the sense they're completely interested in it. And, probably overall it's more good than harm. That's my sense.
Well, let's hope so, because few things are these days. Few
yes,
things are.
Sure.
So, do you have any personal encounters with individuals that were particularly interesting?
Yeah. Well, I had a great encounter in 2015 with a young manatee named CJ in Crystal River, Florida, and he was very frisky. And he was just a lovely, lovely animal. And I'm really torn because on the one hand, I think swimming with manatees is completely, it should be banned as far as I'm concerned. On the other hand, given that it isn't banned, and how just wonderful I find these animals, it's really an indulgence of mine that I occasionally do it. And this particular animal who was young, and the calves are often just way more interactive. I just hung out with him for about an hour, and he was so calm and playful. And yeah, I would bring him home if I could. If I didn't think it was wrong.
No, you're not allowed to do that, Jennifer.
Yeah, I know. Bathtub in New York City is really not his ideal home. So, but yeah, and I've had a lot of encounters like that in the ocean with especially marine mammals, who are just a little more, interested in us, I'd say, or at least that's my impression, right? I don't know, maybe a fish is, and I know lots of people, and you've probably spoken to many of them who've had that experience with an individual octopus. I haven't had that honor or benefit yet, but it's on my bucket list if I can find the right tentacles.
Yeah, octopuses are just crazy. That's just crazy, the whole thing.
What
the hell is going on there? What is going on there? What are some of the things that octopuses do? Which I am told is the proper plural. I hope I'm right.
Yeah, everyone's, all over the place with that. And I think you can't go wrong. They have amazing adaptations to, looking like other things, blending into their background environment, camouflage. They use tools, they build walls. And all of this is really strange behavior. They sneak out of aquarium, to go eat other species in other tanks and then sneak back into their tank.
I didn't know that one. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, no, they're rascals, for sure. Certain individuals at least are. And then I know several people who have had encounters with octopus, and they genuinely feel afterward that they were interacting with a highly intelligent being. And that's not, and this is coming from people who are not, even animal rights oriented at all. And they're just no, there's something there, and it freaked me out,
Yeah.
So that's really neat. And one thing that I'm working on now, along with colleagues, but is how scary it is that we're, attempting perhaps to farm these guys en masse. It's something I don't think should happen if we're at all concerned about welfare, but we can get into those more depressing.
Yeah, no, I was going to move on to depressing.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry, we're not sticking with happy. And basically, my next question reads: most of our listeners know that we are decimating the oceans. I do have notes in front of me, and I wanted to make sure I asked you about decimating the oceans. But I shouldn't be laughing. Can you give us an idea of exactly how bad it is at this point?
Well, I mean, I don't think any of us find this a laughing matter. I hope everyone realizes it's a coping mechanism, just to
exactly.
get by. So, the oceans are really interesting because they are our last sort of large-scale hunter-gatherer system, aside from mushrooms. So we have these two strange, still sort of semi-wild systems, and it's fish and aquatic animals and mushrooms, and they're both being now rapidly farmed. But exploitation in the oceans, we face a million different problems: climate change, pollution, plastics. But still, fishing and overfishing remain at the top threat to the oceans, especially in the short run. And so we've seen the overexploitation of wildlife on a massive scale, the expansion of fish trees further offshore, deeper for new species. We now have massive operations in Antarctica. We're everywhere. We are the world's biggest marine predator out there in terms of scale. Of our geographic range. And on top of that, fish farming is also the fastest growing food industry. And so those two things combined, I think, for aquatic animals signal, there's a real need to change our ways, to scale back effort on the oceans, and also to really think long and hard about how we're going to do this, the farming of animals in the water, if we're going to do it at all, or what opportunities we have, I think, to still change our ways.
Yeah, and I mean, that brings up like an interesting perspective for our listeners who are mostly vegan, coming from a vegan perspective. And, the idea of overfishing and how we should farm is kind of distasteful to all of us, because we shouldn't be fishing. Any fishing is overfishing, and no farming is good farming. But even coming from that perspective, in order to get a grip on this huge problem, we do have to look at the reality and see if there are ways that people could be persuaded to at least, I guess, I mean, I'm not sure that we need to do this, but are there ways that people could be persuaded to do it a little less horrifically? And what are your thoughts on that, particularly with fish farming? What is the way to reduce the harm? What is a way to reduce the harm here, even if we can't eliminate it?
Yeah, so I mean, we just have an article out about how, if we want to minimize ecological harm, welfare concerns, and maximize food security, because the other dirty secret of aquaculture is that we actually fish a lot of wild fish from the ocean to feed to these farmed fish, especially things like farmed salmon. And so this is a really stupid system. We're farming carnivores, in the ocean, which we haven't dared to do on any industrial scale on land, because it just doesn't make very much sense. And so even when you do fish farming, you actually don't reduce the number of fish caught, because then you're just catching fish to feed to the fish that you're farming. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, in terms of individual animals, you don't reduce it at all. And then in terms of biomass, we turn about a third of the fish that we catch out of the oceans globally into